Sandra Bullock adjusted her sunglasses as she stepped into the bustling airport terminal, hoping for a smooth, quiet flight. She had just wrapped up a hectic press tour and was looking forward to some peace. But of course, life had other plans. As she approached the boarding gate, an impatient passenger behind her, a well-dressed businessman with an air of self-importance, huffed loudly. "Can you move a little faster?" he grumbled, tapping his expensive watch. "Some of us have places to be." Sandra, ever the composed professional, offered a polite smile and stepped aside. But as she reached for her boarding pass, the unexpected happened. Her bag strap got caught on the retractable barrier. In one swift motion, it yanked back, causing her coffee to spill all over her blouse. Gasps and a few muffled laughs rippled through the line. The businessman scoffed. "Seriously? Some people shouldn't fly first class." A wave of embarrassment rushed through Sandra. She knew that celebrities were no strangers to awkward moments, but something about this felt unnecessarily cruel. Just as she started to gather herself, a calm, familiar voice broke through the tension. "That's funny," the voice said coolly, "because I was just thinking some people shouldn't talk in first class." The crowd turned, and there he was, Keanu Reeves. Dressed in his signature laid-back style, he had been quietly observing from the back of the boarding line. His expression was neutral, but his eyes carried the unmistakable weight of disapproval. The businessman blinked, suddenly recognizing the Hollywood icon. He stammered, his arrogance melting into awkward silence. Keanu, without missing a beat, grabbed a handful of napkins from the counter and handed them to Sandra. "You okay?" he asked gently. Sandra let out a small chuckle, dabbing at her ruined blouse. "Yeah, just another day in the life." Keanu smiled, then turned back to the businessman. "You know, kindness doesn't cost extra. Maybe try it sometime." The man turned red, mumbling something unintelligible before grabbing his briefcase and hastily boarding the plane. Sandra sighed in relief and looked at Keanu. "Always at the right place at the right time, huh?" He smirked. "What can I say? Old habits die hard." As they boarded, Keanu casually leaned in. "By the way, you can borrow my jacket if you don't want to do a fashion show for the whole flight." Sandra laughed. "You, sir, are a lifesaver." With that, they took their seats, just two friends who had seen it all, sharing yet another unforgettable moment in the unpredictable script of life. The end. Hope you like it. Want any edits or a different spin on it? Sandra Bullock was humiliated while boarding the airplane. No one knows Keanu Reeves is watching. Part 2. Sandra slipped on Keanu's jacket, still chuckling at how effortlessly he had diffused the situation. The warm fabric smelled faintly of leather and something uniquely Keanu, like a mix of adventure and mystery. As they settled into their first-class seats, the businessman from earlier sat a few rows ahead, keeping his head down, clearly still embarrassed. "Well, that was fun," Sandra muttered, buckling her seatbelt. Keanu smirked, "More entertaining than most in-flight movies." Just as they got comfortable, the flight attendant came over with a nervous smile. "Mr. Reeves, Ms. Bullock, it's an honor to have you both flying with us today. Can I get you anything?" Sandra gave her a tired smile. "A new blouse, maybe?" Keanu leaned in. "Or a time machine?" They both laughed, but the moment was short-lived. As the flight attendants prepared for takeoff, a commotion erupted from the front of the cabin. "Ma'am, I need you to return to your seat," a flight attendant pleaded. A woman, young, flustered, and clearly distressed, was standing near the cockpit, arguing with the crew. "Please, my brother is in the hospital and I need to get off this plane now. I can't wait till we land." The passengers murmured, some watching with mild curiosity, others annoyed. Sandra frowned. "Something's off." Keanu nodded. "Yeah, that's not just panic, that's desperation." Before the flight crew could intervene further, Keanu unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up. "Let me talk to her." The flight attendants hesitated but knew better than to argue with Keanu Reeves. He approached the woman slowly, his presence instantly calming. "Hey," he said gently, "tell me what's going on." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "My brother got into a terrible accident. They say he might not make it. I have to be there. I can't be stuck in the air for 6 hours." Keanu nodded, his expression unreadable. Then, in classic Keanu fashion, he turned to the nearest flight attendant. "Can the airline help her get on the next flight back?" The attendant hesitated. We don't usually do that once boarding is complete, but..." "I'll pay for it," Keanu said firmly. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Sandra just shook her head, smirking. Of course you will. The woman looked at Keanu in shock. Wait, you'd do that? For me? Keanu shrugged. Life's short. No one should miss saying goodbye to someone they love. The woman broke into tears, whispering a heartfelt thank you as the airline quickly arranged for her to disembark. As Keanu returned to his seat, Sandra crossed her arms. You're something else, you know that? Keanu just smirked. You would have done the same, she nudged him playfully. Maybe, but I definitely wouldn't have looked as cool doing it. The plane finally took off, the tension from earlier replaced with admiration for the unexpected hero of the flight. And as Keanu leaned back in his seat, Sandra couldn't help but think, no matter how many movies they made, the real magic wasn't on the screen. It was right here, in the simple, quiet kindness of a man who never stopped surprising the world. The end? Or maybe just another beginning. How's that? Want more twists? Maybe some action? Sandra Bullock was humiliated while boarding the airplane. No one knows Keanu Reeves is watching. Part 3. As the plane cruised smoothly at 35,000 feet, Sandra glanced at Keanu, who had already settled into his usual zen-like state, staring out the window. You know, she said, tilting her head, you just casually changed that woman's life back there. And now you're sitting here like it's no big deal. Keanu turned to her with a small smirk. Kindness isn't supposed to be a big deal. It's just supposed to be. Sandra rolled her eyes. Ugh, even after all these years, you still manage to sound like a modern-day philosopher. Keanu grinned. It's part of my charm. Their peaceful conversation was interrupted by a sudden bang. The entire cabin shuddered. Passengers gasped and a few flight attendants scrambled to regain their balance. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Sandra and Keanu exchanged looks. They had both been in enough high-stakes situations, on-screen and off, to know when something wasn't right. Then, another jolt. This one was harder. A cart toppled over, sending drinks spilling across the floor. Keanu's grip on the armrest tightened. That wasn't turbulence. Sandra nodded, her heart racing. Yeah, something's up. A nervous-looking flight attendant hurried past them, but Keanu caught her arm gently. What's happening? He asked, his voice calm but firm. The woman hesitated, glancing around before leaning in. One of the pilots isn't responding. The co-pilot is trying to reach him, but something's wrong. Sandra's eyes widened. Are you saying the pilot is out? Before the flight attendant could answer, a commotion broke out near the cockpit. A man in dark clothing lunged at one of the crew members, shoving them aside. Passengers screamed. Hijacking! The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Sandra's breath hitched. Oh, hell no. Not today. Keanu was already unbuckling his seatbelt. Stay here, Sandra scoffed. Like hell I will. As if on cue, the hijacker, masked, tall, and exuding menace, stormed into the cabin holding something metallic. Everyone stay in your seats, he barked. No one move, and no one gets hurt. The businessman from earlier cowered in his seat, whimpering. Keanu and Sandra exchanged a look. It was the same look they had shared in Speed in the lake house, that unspoken understanding. Keanu stood slowly, hands raised. Hey, man, let's talk about this. The hijacker whipped around, startled. Sit down. Keanu took a careful step forward. Whatever you want, let's figure it out. No one needs to get hurt. Sandra, meanwhile, subtly grabbed an untouched bottle of champagne from the fallen drink cart. The hijacker glared at Keanu, momentarily distracted. That's all Sandra needed. Crack! The champagne bottle shattered against the hijacker's head. He staggered. Keanu moved in an instant. One well-placed punch sent the man crumbling to the floor. A beat of silence. Then the passengers erupted into cheers. Sandra, catching her breath, shook her head. You always get to be the action hero. Keanu smirked. Not this time. That was your knockout punch. The flight crew rushed in, securing the hijacker as the co-pilot regained control of the plane. As the chaos settled, Sandra flopped back into her seat. Well, that was more exciting than I planned for today. Keanu leaned back, giving her a sideways glance. Still think I sound like a philosopher? Sandra smirked. No, now you just sound like John Wick. They laughed, the tension finally breaking. The plane continued its journey, but one thing was certain. No one on that flight would ever forget the day Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock saved them at 35,000 feet. Or is it? How's that for a twist? Want more action? Maybe a secret spy plot? Sandra Bullock was humiliated while boarding the airplane. No one knows Keanu Reeves is watching. Part 5. As Sandra and Keanu stepped off the plane, exhausted but victorious, the airport terminal was already buzzing. News had spread fast. Some passengers had live-tweeted the entire ordeal, and now reporters were swarming the gate like vultures. Ms. Bullock, Mr. Reeves, can you comment on what happened? Did you really take down a hijacker? Keanu, did you actually fly the plane? Sandra groaned. Oh, come on! We just survived the most ridiculous flight ever, and now we have to do press? Keanu smirked. Guess that's what happens when you save the day. They both instinctively turned toward the exits, hoping to avoid the media circus. But just as they thought they were in the clear, a man in a sleek black suit stepped in front of them. Mr. Reeves, Ms. Bullock, he said smoothly. My name is Agent Cole. I'm with a special division of the government. We need to talk. Sandra sighed. Nope. I refuse to let this turn into a spy movie. Keanu, however, tilted his head. What kind of special division? Agent Cole gave him a knowing look. Let's just say we deal with unusual situations, and your flight definitely qualifies. Keanu crossed his arms. What's this really about? Cole lowered his voice. The man you took down wasn't a random hijacker. He was part of an international syndicate, and whatever he was planning wasn't just about your plane. We think you two were targeted. Sandra blinked. Okay, now you have my attention. Keanu remained calm. Why us? Cole's expression was unreadable. We don't know yet, but we do know one thing. This isn't over. Sandra sighed, rubbing her temples. I knew I should have just taken a road trip. Keanu smirked. Too late now. Cole gestured toward a black SUV parked just outside the terminal. Come with me. There's something you both need to see. Sandra looked at Keanu. Are we really doing this? Keanu gave her a small, knowing grin. You said you didn't want this to turn into a spy movie. But let's be honest. We'd make a great team. Sandra groaned but couldn't help but smile. Fine, but if we end up jumping out of a plane again, I quit life. Keanu chuckled. Deal. As they stepped into the SUV, unaware of the twists ahead, one thing was clear. This adventure was just getting started. To be king. How's that for a twist? Want more? Maybe a full-on spy thriller? Ha! Sandra Bullock was humiliated while boarding the airplane. No one knows Keanu Reeves is watching. Part 6. The black SUV moved smoothly through the streets, its tinted windows blocking out the chaos of the airport behind them. Sandra sat with her arms crossed, tapping her fingers on her knee. So, she said, glancing at Agent Cole, where exactly are you taking us? Because if this turns into some top-secret government bunker nonsense, I swear. Cole remained stoic. It's just a secure location. You'll understand soon enough. Keanu, relaxed as ever, leaned back. You still haven't answered the real question. Why were we targeted? Cole hesitated, then slid a tablet across the seat. This was found on the hijacker. Sandra and Keanu leaned in. The screen showed a photo, grainy but clear enough. It was of them together, sitting in the airport lounge before the flight. Below it, a file name read, Priority Targets, Reeves and Bullock. Sandra's stomach tightened. Okay, that's creepy. Keanu frowned. This wasn't random. Not even close, Cole confirmed. We believe the hijacker was part of an international syndicate known as Umbra. Their specialty is espionage, sabotage, and high-profile kidnappings. Sandra threw up her hands. Great, just great. So what? You're saying we were almost kidnapped? On a plane? Keanu's jaw tightened. But why? Cole swiped the screen, revealing another document, this one labeled Project Phoenix. Keanu's eyes darkened. Where did you get this? Sandra looked between them. Wait, you know what this is. Keanu exhaled slowly. Yeah, and it's bad. Sandra groaned. Of course it is. Before they could say anything else, the SUV jerked violently, tires screeching. Hold on, the driver shouted. Bam! A black motorcycle crashed into their side, sending sparks flying. A second later, gunfire erupted up, shattering the back window. Are you kidding me? Sandra yelled, ducking. Cole pulled out a gun. They found us. Stay down. Keanu's instincts kicked in. He grabbed Sandra and pulled her to the floor just as another round of bullets whizzed past. Outside, 2 motorcycles flanked the SUV, their riders masked and armed. Looks like Umbra isn't done with us yet, Keanu muttered. Sandra peeked up. "Oh, now it's a full spy movie. Fantastic." Keanu smirked. "Told you would make a great team." Sandra rolled her eyes. Less talking, more surviving. As the SUV swerved, tires screeching, Keanu reached for the door handle. Sandra grabbed his arm. "Oh no! What are you doing?" Keanu's eyes twinkled. "Something crazy." And with that, he jumped out of the moving car. Sandra's scream was drowned out by the sound of gunfire. To be continued. How's that for an action-packed twist? Want more? Maybe a secret past connection between Keanu and Umbra.